We know that Houston is a hot and warm place. Because of that, I guarantee you, every single facility has some degree of mold. Every one of them. Mold is everywhere. The fact that mold exists, or can be, that evidence of mold can be seen, is itself not really a big deal. It's very common. Mold is itself not necessarily dangerous. And the fact that mold is present doesn't mean that you gotta shut the whole thing down and put the tenant in a hotel. In fact, there is nothing in state law that requires you as a landlord, as an investor, as a property manager, or as a homeowner to take a tenant and put them in a hotel because of a defect on the property. Not one thing. But over and over I get landlords who say, well, no, there was mold, it's toxic, they could die. Well, let me tell you, again, there's mold everywhere. If it gets to the level of toxicity, someone has been ignoring that problem for a long, long time. Mold can get to unhealthy levels, but generally speaking, the mold that's found in most residential houses just doesn't. And yes, should it be addressed? Yes. But is it as cataclysmic a problem as sometimes tenants, right? Because they get online and they find all these scary things that could happen, right? Like my arms could fall off. Like, okay, I guess. I mean, but the truth is, mold is actually quite tame. And because it's so prevalent, you're likely to find mold. And so when your tenant goes out and hires somebody to do a mold check, guess what they're going to find in your house? Mold. Particularly in wet areas. Your number one job when you get a mold complaint is to have an inspection. Go out there, don't take their word for it. Don't just presume that what they're saying is accurate. You're going to want every time to go out and inspect the situation. If you have a mold complaint and you ignore it, that's when things get bad. That's when the tenant gets nervous and goes out and gets their own mold test, or hires an attorney, or files a lawsuit. And all of that means extra cost for you, extra cost for you, extra cost for you. Unnecessary. You hear the complaint, just like any other request for repair, you are diligently going and inspecting that condition. There's always a source. It's always water, every single time. Mold doesn't exist without water. So you may ask, well, why is there mold in the closet? Well, there's probably mold in the closet because there's a water line that goes behind that closet wall and it's broken. It's leaking, maybe not a lot, but a drip, drip, drip in a place that doesn't air out well is a perfect condition for mold growth. And if you have a source of water where water should not be, that's where problems happen. Which is why inspection, even without a complaint, is essential. If you are not visiting your property at least twice every 12-month term, you're setting yourself up for failure. When you're inspecting and when you're looking for water sources, you're looking, anticipating water where it doesn't belong. So don't just go and yep, all looks good. Go into closets, touch the carpet. Look at the walls. If you see spots on the ceiling, that means that water is going through the sheetrock. That's a problem. If something's damp that's not supposed to be damp, that means you've got a leak behind the wall. You need to tear that open, fix that leak before it turns into thousands of dollars of repair. So if you go and find a source, you can usually eliminate a mold problem pretty quickly. Now, it might be complicated. Right? It might be a matter of tearing through the wall, fixing the plumbing, resetting the wall, painting, and all that. Sometimes when it is neglected over a large period of time, you might have a whole set of cabinets that need to be replaced. Again, that happens over time. That's not instant. Right? A little bit of water here, a little bit of water there. But if you've let something go, a known leak, there's a little bit of mold, it's not that big a deal. If there is a water intrusion where water doesn't belong, that's a problem. And if it's addressed soon, it's a little problem. If you let it linger, it gets really big. And that's where you start getting smells. That's where people start who normally get coughs at any time of the year start attributing their cough to the toxic mold, and now you've got a bigger problem than you really need. Can you identify a water source even before a report is made? If so, deal with it quickly. Don't just paint over it. That's the common thing. I'm like, oh, it's a little dark. I'm going to paint right over it. Now it's not dark anymore. Right? Problem solved. Well, you put a Band-Aid when an operation was needed. Right? And so if all you're doing is covering up the evidence of water intrusion, you're delaying your own bigger problem.
That's right.
Right? And so you see water where it doesn't belong, deal with it quickly. Sooner rather than later, always better. Landlords, as always, we welcome you to follow us on our Instagram page. If you're not a member yet, join us on Facebook. And if you enjoy what you see here, give us a thumbs up. Click that like button. We enjoy that very much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Now, what about where water exists where it does belong, like in a shower or a sink? Can mold develop there? Absolutely it can, especially if you have small children who, like mine, leave their wet towels all over the place, sometimes for days at a time. And so moisture and bacteria, right? Those children are never clean. Moisture and bacteria linger in places where they're not supposed to be. With heat, it becomes a breeding ground for mold development. And so if you have a bad habit of leaving wet, damp towels for prolonged times in the same place, a wet carpet, a wet mat, right, begins to smell because it's fostering the growth of bacteria and mold. Those things, again, can always be addressed. You wash that mat, you get rid of those towels, maybe even pull up the carpet, right? And just say, nope, that's not happening anymore. You got tile now, right? All these things are remedies to problems for human behavior, right? That lead to other problems in the future that you can deal with as the investor, as the owner, before they ever become cataclysmic. 9 times out of 10, you get a mold complaint and nobody has gotten sick. 9 times out of 10, you get a mold complaint and nobody has gotten sick. But every once in a while, somebody gets sick. Let me give you some news. People get sick all year long from all sorts of things. And even if this person is sick, and even if there is mold in your house, which again, there's mold in every one of your houses, it doesn't necessarily mean they got sick from that mold. In any lawsuit, they would have to prove that they got sick from that mold and not the mold outside, not the mold in any other building they enter into, and not from some virus. So unless they have a medical report that specifically connects their illness to your home, you probably don't have a legitimate mold claim. Do you have mold in your house? Do you have a water intrusion where it doesn't belong? Those things should be dealt with. But do they have a strong claim for personal injury, for medical harm? Probably not. They'll speak to you as though they've got $1 million claim, but most of the times it's really nothing. Because again, for it to have gotten so monumentally toxic, it would have to be ignored either by them or by you. And since you're not ignoring any water intrusion on your home, it's likely they created something, or more likely, they're sick from some other source. So you identify the cause of the mold, and then if they come to you with a problem, a medical issue, and try to connect it to the mold, your request is simple. Do you have any medical data showing that it is directly connected to any condition in the house? If they don't, I don't know that they have a strong claim against you. If you have these facts, though, to any degree, and you are unsure, of course, your best bet is to consult an attorney and make sure that these facts are reviewed so that you have a clear understanding of where you stand and how likely it is you might be sued. More often than not, these are problems you can prevent or that you can deal with quite easily without any additional harm.